Yes, sir.
Everybody set? All right, good afternoon, everyone. Unfortunately, last time I was in this room with many of you, it was announcing that we had found the body of Jennifer Brown. Today, we're here to announce that we've made an arrest on her murder. I'm here with several people that probably don't need introductions, but I will anyway. So on the far end is our Chief of County Detectives, Mark Bernsteel. Next to him is Lindsay Mills, an Assistant District Attorney, who has put countless hours into this investigation and case. Our First Assistant District Attorney, Ed McCann, who also has put an incredible amount of time and effort into getting us where we are. Chief Malavich from the Limerick Township Police, and Lieutenant Roach from the Limerick Township Police joining us here today on this. So we're here to talk about Jennifer Brown. Jennifer was a devoted mother, a dear friend to many, a woman who was deeply loved. Her life was cut short at 43 years of age. So 37 days ago, on January 4th, she was reported missing to the Limerick Township Police by what I'll say is her supposed friend and business partner, Blair Watts. That lodged a joint missing persons investigation by the Limerick Township Police and the Montgomery County detectives. And I'll say an outpouring not only from the Limerick Township and Royersford areas, and the communities there, but the wider Philadelphia area, and even nationally. The community was deeply affected by the disappearance of this devoted mother. But tragically, at the time of the missing persons report, we believe Jennifer was already dead. But it wasn't until January 18th that Jennifer's body was found and officially became a homicide investigation. Two employees of a local business on North 5th Avenue in Royersford had found a freshly dug grave covered with wooden pallets behind a warehouse, and they reported it to the Royersford Police. And the Montgomery County Coroner's Office, led by Dr. Michael Milbourne, confirmed that it was indeed Jennifer Brown. Today, 37 days since she was reported missing, I'm here to announce that we have arrested Jennifer's killer this morning. Blair Watts is now behind bars at the Montgomery County Correctional Facility, awaiting arraignment on first-degree murder charges, third-degree murder charges, theft by unlawful taking, and access device fraud. And so there's no mystery with this. He will be in the Montgomery County Correctional Facility where he will stay because there is no bail available in a first-degree murder case in Pennsylvania. So while it took more than a month to arrest Watts, the Montgomery County detectives and the Limerick Township detectives feared and suspected early on that this devoted mother to an 8-year-old boy with special needs had either been kidnapped or killed. And as detectives uncovered evidence piece by piece, the picture of what happened to Jennifer has become more and more clear. We believe she was murdered at the hands, again, of her supposed friend and business partner on January 3rd, and that is the day before Watts reported her missing. And then he tried to cover his tracks and get rid of her body before he reported her missing. So when Jennifer was first reported missing, an initial exigent search of her home to check on her safety found no signs of a struggle. Police found her vehicle, which was parked outside the front of her residence, and in her residence they found keys, a work cell phone, computer tablet, purse, and credit cards, all inside the residence. At that first report, Watts told detectives that he had Jennifer's 8-year-old son with him for a planned sleepover with his 3 kids in order to give Jennifer a break. yet there were no clothes sent with him, and more importantly, no medicine that the boy takes twice daily. It was not sent with him. A fact that was reported to detectives and emphasized by the boy's emotional support teacher, who said he had tried to call and email Jennifer throughout the day on January 4th, and she didn't respond, which wasn't just unusual. This was highly unusual. The teacher said Jennifer would never forget the boy's medicine, and we believe when Watts picked up the boy from the bus stop at 4 p.m. On the 3rd, that Jennifer was already dead. As detectives began their investigation, a few key things happened in those first few days. They learned that on Thursday, January 5th, that Watts had had a set of house keys and car keys of Jennifer's. So he had complete access to her home. On that same day, Montgomery County detectives received permission from Jennifer's aunt to search inside the home, and detectives found buried in a deep pile carpet in part of the living room adjacent to the kitchen several black and white marble patterned plastic pieces. Detectives couldn't see the plastic pieces when they were looking out over the room, but one of our detectives had run his hands through the carpet and felt them. So at the time, detectives did not know what these plastic pieces were, or even if they were significant to this investigation, but they bagged them and they labeled them as evidence. So fast forward to the time where we found Jennifer's body, and it became apparent how important those plastic pieces were, because they matched up and were part of a claw type hair clip. My daughters have them that you put on. So I'll actually show you a couple pictures here as we go through. That, of course, is Jennifer. There is the defendant from today, and here's the hair clip. So the plastic parts of the hair clip that are labeled under HC1 and HC2 in this found and found in the grave, and the smaller one, F1 through F6 were found buried in the carpet. So when you piece them together, it forms the hair clip that detectives found at the home and they found in the grave. So leading us to conclude that where she was killed was in her apartment. So a couple other factors that I'll go through now. The next day, on Friday, January 6th, a Philadelphia police officer and his canine, and it's a cadaver dog, if people aren't familiar with that. The dog's name is Patton, and it's trained to find human remains. And they searched inside Brown's residence with the dog. And during the search, Patton indicated in the kitchen area, and that signaled to investigators that a cadaver, human remains, or human biological material had previously been in this location. So Canine Patton also searched the outside of the residence and indicated in a covered structure where two trash dumpsters were located, just 20 yards from the residence where Jennifer had lived. So, as I take you through these different pieces to show the links, they all become important in the timeline. So those key events foreshadowed what was to come as we interviewed and re-interviewed individuals and collected data such as surveillance video, cell phone data for Jennifer's missing cell phone, and Watt's 3 cell phones. So cell phones and the movement of these cell phones become very revealing in this case. Watts had 2 known cell phones, but Watts' girlfriend told detectives about a 3rd cell phone that Watts used. The movements of Watts' cell phones and the movements of Jennifer's personal cell phone show that Watts was in possession of her cell phone until it became inactive at 7 a.m. on January 4th in the area of North Lewis Road and West Ridge Pike in Royersford. Watts' cell phone was in the same vicinity at that same time, and surveillance videos from area residents and businesses show one of the vehicles that he drove, a red Jeep Cherokee, was driving in that same area that morning. So cell phone activity and surveillance videos also show that Watts' phone and his wife's gray Jeep Renegade, which Watts had access to and drove, was in the area of the warehouse where Jennifer's body was buried. So January 7th, Watts' red Jeep Cherokee was located and seized by the detectives. They obtained a search warrant, and the cadaver dog, K9 Patton, was again deployed. And he indicated to the presence of human remains on the back seat of the red Jeep Cherokee. So after surveillance video from the area and the surrounding shallow grave where Jennifer's body was buried showed the gray Jeep Renegade, similar to the wife's vehicle, detectives obtained a search warrant for that vehicle. And then on January 24th, the cadaver dog, Patton, again was deployed, and he indicated to the presence of human remains on the floor mat taken from behind the driver's seat of that gray Jeep Renegade, meaning the human remains had previously been in each of the two Jeeps known to be driven by Watts. All right, so this investigation also looked, of course, at this business partnership between Blair Watts and Jennifer Brown. They had executed somewhat of a business partnership agreement in August of 2022 for a restaurant supposedly going to be called Birdie's Kitchen. And this restaurant had an expected opening date at the end of January. But the investigation found that Watts had met with the owners of the building in Royersford and that he had been allowed to hang a banner on the sign that said Birdie's Kitchen. But there's a few factors that became important for the investigation. The owner said that Watts did not have a signed lease, that Watts had not given them any money, that he had never been given keys to the building, that he hadn't begun any renovations to get this ready to open as a restaurant at the end of January. And detectives also learned that on December 28th, the building owners had told Watts that they wouldn't be moving forward on leasing the building to him, and Watts had actually threatened to sue them over that. So we'll back up to another aspect of this where the detectives examined Jennifer's computer tablet that the detectives found on the afternoon, or the timing on January 3rd, the day before Brown was reporting missing. And this is after we believe that she had been killed. There's two cash transfers that are made. Again, after she has been killed using her computer tablet. And these two transfers were made on accounts controlled, or two accounts controlled by Watts. Cash App records show a transfer of $9,000 to Birdie's Kitchen at 4:23 p.m., a transaction that went through on the fourth attempt. Okay? Fourth attempt. And it only went through after the app's two-factor authentication was disabled. All right. Then, a second cash transfer of $8,000 through Veli was completed at 4:35 p.m. To Birdie's. All right, so $17,000 we believe shortly after her death, is transferred, by the defendant to himself. So the next day, on January 4th, Watts shows up the restaurant property unannounced to tell the two brothers that he's threatened to sue, that he now has the money to put down on a lease. Another significant point in the case. So, folks, there is a lot more evidence that is outlined in this criminal complaint. And I believe as you look through it, it's 39 pages in this criminal complaint. And what it'll show you and what it outlines is that we believe Jennifer Brown was murdered in her own home, that she was then moved and ultimately buried in a shallow grave where she was found 2 weeks later. Now, Watts is behind bars and charged with the murder of Jennifer Brown. I'm going to take questions in a moment, but I need to just thank the law enforcement partners we've had in this case, and I know that the chiefs share this, that we wouldn't be standing here today without the assistance of the FBI, the Philadelphia Police Department, and specifically their canine, their cadaver canine, Patton, the Royersford Police, the Phoenixville Police, the East Vincent Township Police. And so thanks to all of these law enforcement partners, as well as all the good folks in the Limerick and Royersford communities who called in tips and who searched for Jennifer and who cared so much about the loss of this mother and the tragic circumstances that we found ourselves in this case. I'm honored to work with the folks that I do, and I cannot begin to tell you how many hours have gone into this by everybody participating in this to get to this end. You'll see a little bit of it outlined in this 39-page criminal complaint. So I'll take questions now. Yes, it is homicide by unspecified means, and so what I'll say about that is that when they conducted the autopsy, and the coroner's office, Michael Milbourne, and the forensic pathologist on this is Ian Hood, and what they didn't find in the autopsy was a gunshot, a knife wound, or anything from a toxicological perspective that would have caused her death. What they did find of significance is that she had 3 broken ribs while she was still alive, and what Dr. Hood also said with that is that the death is attributed to homicide by unspecified means with compression, asphyxia, a mechanism that would account for the fractured ribs.
So, Kevin, what do you think the motive is here? Have you determined specifically what the motive was?
Look, as you know, Carl, we don't have to prove a motive in a case, but we always look for what could be behind this to try to reason why a young mother would be killed in this fashion. I can't give you a specific along those lines, but we've outlined a scam restaurant where he was putting or getting money from somebody, and you get to a point where the jig is going to be up, because this restaurant hadn't moved in the direction that that he was supposedly taking it and supposedly doing this through a partnership. I think you'll see some of the cover-up aspects that he did outline in the complaint with this too. But you know, again, there's no excuse for, you know, this woman to be killed for any reason.
Sorry. How significant was finding the hair clip in that home and finding it near her body?
Well, you match that up with some of the other evidence in the case. So the cadaver dog patent goes into the house and alerts, right, in the kitchen area, right? So right off of the kitchen area is where, you know, the pieces of the hair clip are found. We didn't know the significance of that when the detectives, you know, got those items, but, you know, I work with an incredible group of detectives, and they look at everything to try to determine, and so they took that as a potential piece of evidence. All right, fast forward to when her body is found, and, you know, those same detectives are working, you know, that scene when they exhumed her body from the shallow grave, and they see the other part of it, you know, and so that became significant to say, all right, look, this very likely happened in her house, and, you know, and then she was taken to this shallow grave.
When did he become someone who was on investigators' radar, and could you kind of describe his cooperation and behavior over the course of this investigation and what the arrest was like this morning?
Look, he, you look and you can Monday morning quarterback, you know, certain things. You know, who is it that called the police to report her missing? You know, who had her son? You know, who, and you'll see in the affidavit of probable cause, you know, him going back and forth, and, you know, items that that he got out of the house but didn't take the little boy into the house. That, you know, he talks about, you know, him spending the night and this being, but then on the other hand says that, oh, he thought she was going to pick her up, but, you know, there's no calls that support these things. So, you know, look, yeah, as you go through and work these cases, you know, you look at all the possibilities. And, you know, what I will say in this case is, you know, as you piece this together, it all just keeps pointing back to Blair Watts, and, you know, doesn't point at anybody else. It points at Blair Watts, and, you know, so he is now under arrest for the murder of Jennifer Brown.
Is the allegation that he had the body in both his red Jeep Cherokee and then used his wife's vehicle to take the body and dispose of the body?
Look, what we know is that the cadaver dog hit on both of the cars. So, you know, did he transfer, you know, it from one car to another? You know, there's aspects of where he's hiding the one car from, you know, police knowledge and those kind of things. So it's all these pieces of, you know, trying to cover up or cover his tracks, you know, after this happened.
But it's the wife's vehicle that was seen by the warehouse where her body was found, correct?
I believe so, yes.
When you talk about compression asphyxiation, that's not unlike crowd crush, like literally where he almost sat on her, prevented her from being able to breathe. It seems long and excruciating, like it seems like that doesn't happen quickly.
Well,
Is it similar to crowd crush?
well, I can't get too much in the weeds on that. You know, we all have roles. You know, ours is you know, to follow the evidence wherever it leads, and we look at the different pieces. And so, you know, you have you know, one of the best forensic pathologists that I have ever been around is Dr. Ian Hood, and he looked at this and made determinations on it, and, you know, and that was his findings. So probably a better question for him on the witness stand.
Broken blood vessels in your eyes, and like it's a different kind of asphyxiation.
So, you know, the other aspect of this you have to keep in mind is, this isn't somebody that we found in the location, right? He disposed of her body, and we didn't find it until January 18th. So there's certain aspects that come with that, of decomposition and other things. So that's why I say to you, there's no gunshot, there's no knife, and there's no toxicology that would explain her death. But you have broken ribs while she was still alive, and that leads to the conclusion that this is a homicide by unspecified means.
What
Ma'am?
kind of heartless person is Watts? He kills a kid's mom and takes care of the kid the same day, his wife and a girlfriend at the same time.
I think you just answered your own question.
Are you looking for an accomplice? Did you work alone, do you think? Are we expecting any more arrests?
The evidence in this case has all pointed to this defendant. He clearly is somebody that could move her and do this. Again, each of these pieces of evidence and have been put together painstakingly. We've followed all the legal processes and things. We've worked so many different angles, from electronic surveillance to search warrants to talking to countless numbers of people, to spending time in trash areas to try to find her body, and we're just thankful that we're at a point where we can do what we've done today.
Mr. Steele, Blair Watts hung around, even went to the vigil shortly after Jennifer Brown disappeared. This guy didn't run in the community. Clearly, he didn't feel like he had any chance of getting arrested or charged with her murder. So you're pretty sure you have the right person?
The evidence is very clear in this case, and it points to the defendant. You've said some things in your question that don't comport to the evidence that we have in the case, and I would give you a little time to read that affidavit of probable cause, and I think you'll come to the same conclusions we have.
Do you think that he basically packed her body in one car and then moved it to another? Do you think that this restaurant and part of that was used for this crime?
We didn't find any evidence of the restaurant being involved in it, and it really comes back, I think, to the cadaver dog and where the hits were. So I can't give you an order or a timing on that. What I can say is that both cars got hits, by this dog, and it comports with the other evidence in the case that we saw, in terms of the video surveillance of what car is where. In this and outlined in the affidavit, is a timeline, that isn't just supported, by one factor. It's supported by many factors that are all piecing this together to form these timelines that are critical to the case.
And I know you don't have to prove motive, but do you think there was some sort of catalyst here? I've been told she was looking for a sign. She was getting ready. Everyone I spoke to talked about this restaurant was going to open that weekend, or so she thought. Was there some sort of, perhaps, argument? Do you think, and I haven't gotten a chance to read all this.
Yep.
So I understand.
Yeah,
what it is, but do you think
understood.
there was something that led up to this? Or just
Well, you look at what was going on in the restaurant. This establishment was nowhere near a opening at the end of the month. Nowhere near. There was no lease. There was arguments on whether they were going to have a lease or not, and he threatened to sue. And then after he does this, he suddenly shows up with money to pay for the lease. All right. these are all points that clearly go, to him taking the money from her and then trying to cover his tracks in terms of what was going on. And Deanne, I can't tell you whether, that was the triggering event on it, but a lot of things point to that.
And then on that money,
Mm-hmm.
do you have it back? Do you know where he spent it? He's got debt in at least 2 counties in terms of that rent and judgment. So has the money been returned to family? Did he turn around and spend it after not getting the lease?
I can't get into those specifics and each of these things. We're following all of the pieces of evidence that we can, and one of the charges is theft, and so another charge is murder. So when you look at this and whether we can get that money back or get that from him, we'll see. But I just hope that we can continue to work hard on this case to bring justice to this family, to this little boy who doesn't have a mother now because of Blair Watts' actions.
Was there other money that she contributed to this venture?
She did.
Is there a given estimate about how much that was?
Yeah, there's some different amounts, and it's a lower amount, and then he claimed that there was much more given, and there's no evidence of that. So, it's a timeline, and looking, and we believe it must come to some kind of head at this point, and led to this.
Are there other scams he's accused of, similar type scams with other people?
I'm here for this. I'm here for this.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we're here to talk about. You can look at. He was over in Chester County earlier today, and you're welcome to look at whatever they're dealing with there.
Do you know when and where he'll be arraigned, if he's being arraigned today?
Yeah, it's going to be by video, and that's how they do it customarily, and he gets no bail constitutionally. So first degree murder, he's in. He's not going anywhere.
Have you spoken to Brown's family? Just how are they reacting? And what do you think of this arrest after all these weeks?
The family has had an incredibly difficult time. They've worked, very closely with us. I know, they've been heartbroken over this situation and had to, bury a mother, a daughter, and now today, I hope that we can give them the first piece of getting justice in this case, which is arresting the man that is responsible for her death. We have a long process ahead of us, and we'll have a preliminary hearing that hasn't been scheduled yet, and then anticipate a trial in this case, and that's where all these pieces will come together, and the prosecutors on this case are terrific. First Assistant District Attorney, who has tried countless murder cases, and I think he's probably the only first assistant in the state that tried 7 murder cases last year alone. With that, and worked with a lot of people in those cases. And Lindsay Mills has worked incredibly hard, and she captains a unit. She has had some of the more difficult murder cases that we've had. If you look at a case in Lansdale that was basically a contracted killing, Lindsay was able to bring justice to that family. So there can't be 2 better people that are assigned on this case. They wouldn't let me get into it with them, but I'll hope for good watching as it goes through. But they have incredible support from an incredible team. Again, getting back to the detectives that work this case. I don't think you're going to see work like this in too many places, and holding somebody responsible in this kind of case is is gratifying work, and I'm honored to work with everybody I do. So thanks, everybody.
Can you just put the suspect picture up again on the screen for me, just so I can get some shots of you as well? Thank you.
I'll be sending that to your desk too.
Yeah, I understand, it's just a different.
Yeah, I know. Just let me know.
Thank you so much. Sure.
Okay.
I tried to get, I wanted an emotional reaction.
Yours was the best.
He said a big reaction.
Thank you so much. It just gives me more to show. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah, how are you doing?
He's a big
Yep.